Welcome to One Tired Teacher, episode 260. How to weave science into your ELA block without losing your mind. Welcome back. So today we're talking about integrating science so that we can still teach science without going crazy. And I'm excited to talk about that because this is something that I think is so important, and sometimes we don't feel like we have enough time for science, or actually schools take it off our schedule. Like we no longer are teaching science, which I think is insane. So we're going to talk about how to actually do that without losing our mind. But before we get started with that, I want to share that I recently started a We Do Not Care Club teacher chapter edition. And it is based on a hilarious TikToker named Just Being Melanie. Just Being Melanie she's created the We Do Not Care Club for women in menopause and perimenopause. And since I fall in that category, I was like, oh my gosh, I think you're hilarious. And it's all these things that we do not care about, that we're like tired of people talking about. So I was like, there's so many things that we could talk about as teachers that we are like, we can join a teacher chapter. I can create a teacher chapter. So I've been doing that and it's been so fun. And I did a TikTok in August. And it did really well. And it's just all the things that we do not care about. And so one of the things that we do not care about, which has to do with that. And this is one that will be coming up soon. And actually it might even be posted by the time you listen to this episode. But it's like, I do not care if you want me to skip science and social studies. Our country needs smart scientists. And our country needs to understand government. I will be teaching science and social studies. So it's just some little fun thing about, something we don't care about, and what can we do? Anyway, I would love to hear what you don't care about. You don't care about following every single script. You don't care about having a child completely destroy your classroom and throw furniture everywhere. You just want to be able to do your job. Like, what do you not care about? I'd love to hear from you. You can find me on TikTok at Trina_Debery or on Instagram. Same thing. Okay, so let's talk about today. We're talking about, let's go ahead and get started.
Welcome to One Tired Teacher. And even though she may need a nap, this teacher is ready to wake up and speak her truth about the trials and treasures of teaching. Here she is, wide awake. Wait, she's not asleep right now, is she? She is awake, right? Okay. From Trina Debery Teaching and Learning, your host, Trina Debery.
Hey, so that was a long introduction. I'm sorry. I just wanted to tell you about that because I've been having fun, and I thought that I would love to hear what we do not care about. Sorry. All right, so today we're talking about something that I know many teachers wrestle with, and that is how in the world do you fit science into your packed schedule, especially when reading takes up so much of your instructional time. Well, what if you didn't have to fit it in? What if you could weave it in right through your literacy block? I talked a little bit about this last week when we were talking about, maybe it wasn't last week, because I think we talked about screen-free time. It was the week before when we were talking about reading routines and making sure that we were kind of going along even when the curriculum starts. And I definitely have many episodes on this exact topic, and I'll link to some of them below because I think they can be really helpful, especially when you're trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? Anyway, we're going to talk about science and ELA integration without losing your mind or your standards, because that's really the thing. Like, standards are there. We have informational text standards. We have, text features that we have to go over with kids. We have cause and effect that we have to go over. We have to talk about visuals and how they support text. We have to talk about the main idea. We have to ask and answer questions about nonfiction. So there are standards. So instead of pulling something random like penguins or bears or something something that feels random, let's actually focus on our science content or even our social studies content. But today we're talking about science, and let's teach that. So let's talk about the reality check. Most elementary teachers, especially first graders and second graders, or first grade and second grade teachers, barely have time for lunch, let alone a full science block. Science often gets pushed to the side because reading and math get prioritized, but science is a natural match for informational reading, for vocabulary building, for questioning, and for writing. Yes, even for writing. So this can be really tricky. I know I never worked in the classroom where we didn't have a block. And honestly, in my district, you were required to have both a grade for both science and social studies every quarter. Now, during progress reports, we were also supposed to have a grade, but I was like, oh, well, because I'm only covering half. And that's how I would do it, is part of the quarter I would teach my science content, and the other part of the quarter I would teach my social studies content. I couldn't get both of those in there. It was impossible. So I would just put that on the progress report, not covered, will be covered, the second part or whatever. And I never got in trouble for that. Even though people said I was going to, I never did. Parents never got upset. I never heard one thing about it. And so I just did it that way because you know what? You got to be real sometimes. That's the best I could do. So why does it work to combine them? Well, informational texts are tied to science topics, actually deepen both content knowledge and reading skills. Kids stay more engaged when reading feels like exploring. And writing about science reinforces comprehension and purpose. And here's another interesting fact. A lot of kids that don't love reading are kind of a reluctant reader. They love science. They might be a science math kind of thinker. And so if we can connect them or hook them with science topics like force and motion or matter, how states of matter change and the properties of matter and all that good stuff. And one of my favorites is simple machines. We used to have simple machines in our curriculum when I taught second grade, and then they took it off. I think it was and became a third grade standard, and I was so upset. I'm like, oh, my kids love simple machines. But anyway, I had to focus on what was my curriculum, because if not, they were not going to get a well-balanced science base. And I did, even though I wanted to do what I wanted to do, I didn't do that. I stuck with the concepts that we had to teach. But we did have really cool things. Force and motion was really cool. Habitats, my kids loved learning about habitats, weather, severe weather, all that good stuff. That can really hook kids. Also, writing about these things can be really powerful. And then, as a bonus, science experiments, they build background knowledge. They help kids better understand reading. They actually give a purpose for reading. When kids are exploring and they're, even if it's like a STEM challenge and they're having to use science content as well as maybe even math content, they are more likely to want to read the information instead of just front loading them, letting them explore a bit or do an experiment or do a challenge and then reading the content. Whoa, sorry about that. That was an accident. That's happened before. I'm sorry. That always scares me to death. I always forget to mute that little exit part. And if I go longer than sorry. Okay. Anyway, I hope that makes sense, because I think putting in a little experiment, a challenge, a STEM challenge, a science experiment is so powerful, because that gives them a purpose for reading. And that actually helps improve reading comprehension. All right, try this easy start. So choose one standard from your science, like the practice of science. that's a really good place to start. We want them to understand that, the practice of science or the practice of engineering. Find a short nonfiction text or article that introduces the concept. Pair it with a simple hands-on investigation or a vocabulary activity like a headbands kind of activity. That can be really fun too, with vocabulary words from science. Use it as your reading mini lesson or a small group text. Let students write about what they learned in journals or response sheets. Okay, so to help you get started, I've created a free resource that integrates informational text with the practice of science. It's simple, it's purposeful, and it's classroom tested. And I'm going to tell you the link, but I'm also going to drop it in the show notes just in case you don't, you're busy and you're doing something and you are going to be able to hopefully remember this link. It's a little, you want to just remember my website, trinadeberryteachingandlearning.com. And then we've got, to get this particular one, it's trinadeberryteachingandlearning.com/science freebie. Science freebie is written as one word, so you don't have to, put little dashes in between the words. One word, so you can find it easily. trinadeberryteachingandlearning.com/science freebie. It's a great first step toward making science part of your daily rhythm, not an afterthought. Now, when I was teaching second grade, I wrote all of these little science units, and they have 4 to 5 nonfiction passages about the topic, and then there's a bonus experiment to do at the end of the week. So it was like perfect for teaching like force and motion in just a week, a matter of a week. And it gave me enough time so that I could still teach social studies. And I also used parts of the science activities in my reading block because it was nonfiction and it focused on informational text standards. There's 9 different subjects. I have a whole bundle in my shop on TPT. So if you need the whole thing, there's 9 different topics. But this practice of science is a freebie that I'm giving to you. It is one of the resources that are in the bundle, but I'm giving you this unit for free. You can test it out and see what you think. All right. It's definitely a great first step in making science part of your daily rhythm and not an afterthought. I think I said that already, but I just feel like it's important to say it again. You don't need more time. Well, we all need more time, but you just need a little strategy and a lot of grace. Cross-curricular teaching isn't about doing it all. It's about making it all work together. Until next time, sweet dreams and sleep tight.